the oil sanctions on Russia are weakening rapidly. The discounts on Russian oil appeared immediately after the Ukraine invasion due to industry self-sanctioning and the following more expensive rerouting of oil to India and China. On December 5th, the discount was further underpinned by formal sanctions, with the EU import embargo and the G7 price cap. The sanctions pushed the discount on Russian oil from its western ports to over 50%. Since summer, the discount has steadily weakened and is now only at 14%. The main reason is a growing Russia-friendly shadow fleet, as well as circumvention schemes and OPEC+ supply cuts. Western policymakers are now considering ways to strengthen the energy sanctions. The primary oil sanctions on Russia are the EU import embargo and the G7 price cap. Before the war, the EU was the largest importer of Russian oil. On December 5, 2022, the Union imposed its import embargo, banning all imports of Russian crude. This forced Russian oil previously going the short sea route or by pipeline to Europe to reroute to mainly India and China. This new longer and more costly route led to an increased discount on Russian oil. With fewer buyers available, Russia's bargaining power also diminished, further deepening the discount. On February 5, 2023, the embargo was expanded to include also refined products such as gasoline and diesel. The price cap on Russian oil aims to keep the world oil market well supplied, while simultaneously limiting Russia's oil revenues. Since the global oil supply is more or less fixed in the short term, any export restriction from Russia increases world oil prices, something leaders in oil-importing countries want to avoid. The cap, which can be viewed as a partial transport embargo, allows tankers and traders to move Russian oil and still access Western tanker services if the oil is sold under the cap, which was initially set at $60 per barrel. At the onset of the war, tanker services, most importantly maritime insurance and financing, were dominated by Western companies. However, since the cap's launch on December 5th, this initial leverage has diminished, undermining the effectiveness of the cap. China's top climate official Xi Jinping said that it's unrealistic to completely phase out fossil fuels, emphasizing their role in global energy security. Responding to comments at a forum ahead of the COP28 climate meeting, Xi noted the importance of fossil fuels in ensuring economic growth, citing the intermittency of renewable energy and immature energy storage technologies. Despite the pressure on countries to make ambitious pledges for carbon dioxide reductions, China led efforts in the previous climate talks to change the agreement language from phasing out to phasing down fossil fuels. While China is open to setting a global renewable energy target, it emphasizes considering the varied economic conditions of different countries. Xi expressed concerns over the impact of protectionism and opposed the EU carbon border adjustment mechanism, highlighting its potential to hinder the energy transition. Yesterday, the European Union initiated its carbon border adjustment mechanism, a framework to tax carbon-intensive imports. The mechanism aims to ensure fair competition and encourage global emission reductions. The first phase requires importers in major industries to report their imported embedded emissions. As of now, the system covers imports of cement, iron and steel, aluminium, fertilizers, electricity, and hydrogen. The initiative has met opposition from major trading partners, in particular China and Russia, who argue it undermines free trade. Beginning in January 2026, companies will be mandated to pay a phased-in levy, aligning with the EU's carbon market prices. The levy can be partially waived if a carbon tax is already paid in the exporting country, promoting worldwide adoption of similar carbon policies. The EU is launching an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric vehicles. The Union wants to protect its domestic manufacturers and market from an influx of cheap Chinese EVs, which it claims benefit from state subsidies. The probe was announced by the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in her annual address to the EU Parliament. Von der Leyen remarked, "We have not forgotten how China's unfair trade practices affected our solar industry," referencing the surge in imports of cheap Chinese solar cells and the subsequent bankruptcy of domestic producers. In response, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce criticized the investigation as naked protectionist behavior, saying it's very much dissatisfied with the investigation. Based on the evidence obtained, and if the policy garners majority support from member states, the Union may introduce import duties on vehicles coming from China, including on Western brands like Volkswagen, BMW, and Tesla, all of which operate factories in China. The U.S. is closing in on China in the global race for lithium-ion battery projects, crucial for electric vehicles and other key technologies. According to global data, while China leads with planned projects worth $128 billion, the U.S. is not far behind at $107 billion. The EU follows with a combined project pipeline of $83 billion. The Biden administration's new emission standards are expected to boost U.S. EV sales and battery demand, and the U.S.'s Inflation Reduction Act is further pushing for domestic mineral sourcing for EV batteries. The global battery supply landscape is rapidly evolving. The International Energy Agency just hosted its first Critical Minerals and Clean Energy Summit with participation from around 50 countries, industry leaders, and civil society. The aim was to discuss strategies to ensure a steady supply of critical minerals vital for clean energy technologies like wind turbines, solar panels, and EVs. The summit recognized the concentration in critical mineral markets and the necessity for diversifying supplies. 6 key actions were identified: diversifying mineral supplies, developing recycling, promoting market transparency, enhancing data availability, incentivizing sustainable practices, and fostering international collaboration. The IEA will further convene a ministerial meeting in February 2024 to assess critical minerals' role in energy security and climate change.